All right, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Tuesday. Getting ready to go on live. Getting ready to do some lives. Got to find out the latest updates of what's going on. Give me a second. Got to put that in. It's going to be an interesting day. That interesting 24 to 48 hours. We're going to start the show right after this word. Good afternoon, content creators. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the show. Welcome to a special edition of the Z Show Cruise Fun. I'm here to get some hours. That's right. I'm here to get some hours because actually I need hours. I need to get monetized before the end of the year, or if not, I'm not going on a cruise. It's that simple. Guys, thank you guys for coming in. We're going to do a special live event. Give me just a second to make sure I'm up and at 'em. We're going to do, we might do a dun, 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 dun.
The biggest impacts, and that is we're still 3 days out. Far too early to say.
Yeah, I got a little bit of cough, so if you hear me coughing, that's what's happening. All right, we'll go ahead and do it live. Make sure everything. Okay, we got two things going on. So, give me just a second. Make sure I got it. I need to get working. Let's see here. New tab. All right. So we got Middle East. We'll go ahead and do this a little quicker, make sure. We got two top stories. Hurricane. What up? Oh. Okay. We got some live reports. Hold on. Let's do this. Let's do WFLA. Let's see if we can do this. I hope everybody's on here. Give me a second.
Be a little bit less intense as it goes further inland, but right on the beach, there's nothing stopping the wind over the ocean. So it's going to be very strong right along the coastline. And that's why we're going to see the potential for winds that could be as high as 110 to 130 miles per hour right up the coastline. Now, in the red is where we're expecting hurricane force wind speeds. That is anywhere from 75 mile per hour winds and greater. That is that's basically an intense severe thunderstorm happening across almost the entire state of Florida. But in addition to that, that's significant. It's going to cause power outages. It's going to as well. Could even see some flying trampolines tomorrow. We've been not tossing trampolines on tall trees Thursday. It is still going to knock down some trees across there, and as well as potentially send some flying trampolines across areas in central Florida. Orlando, Jacksonville, Daytona Beach, and then back just to the southeast of Cape Coral is where that is really going to be felt in terms of hurricane force winds. And then in the orange and in the yellow, that is where tropical storm force winds are currently in the forecast. Now, in terms of power outages, this is what we're thinking. So again, expected to see widespread power outages across most of central Florida as we go into tomorrow and as well as through Thursday. So from Tampa back through Orlando and then back through Daytona Beach and as well as back through Palm Bay and also near Cape Canaveral, we are expecting the potential for widespread power outages as the winds are going to be very strong and they're also going to last for a few hours. This is not just a severe storm where it's going to last 10 to 15 minutes at most. This will end up lasting several hours across much of central Florida. So widespread power outages are in the forecast. Make sure if you're anywhere here in central Florida that you are ready for power outages. Have flashlights ready to go. If you have a generator, have that ready to go. Whatever you might have that will help you through this situation, have that ready to go. If you have phones, iPads, iPod touches, maybe you got iPod Shuffle, any sort of other light sources that you can charge up, it's a good idea to have that ready to go. If you have portable chargers, you should also have those handy because those will also help to keep your phones charged in case you do need them, and that's pretty likely that you'll need them. In addition to that, likelihood of power outages still existing from Jacksonville, Florida, back through parts of even southeastern Florida, back over near West Palm Beach. I would expect at least some scattered to numerous power outages in those areas, and then it should remain much more isolated back over anywhere from southeastern Georgia all the way back through areas like Miami. Now, in terms of the tornado threat, we are expecting a few tornadoes both today and tomorrow. Today's risk is relatively low. Tomorrow, it's more elevated. Majority of any tornadoes tomorrow are going to happen between and south of I-4. So again, that stretch of I-4 is basically perfect when it comes to forecasting this because it's a pretty good dividing line for everything. Just south of Interstate 4, though, is where we're expecting the greatest potential for a few tornadoes, and most of that will be happening tomorrow. The official forecast from the Storm Prediction Center for today, which is tossing trampolines on Tacos Tuesday, currently has a 2% tornado risk, which does include areas just to the south of Lake Okeechobee, Sarasota, Fort Myers, Naples, Miami, and Fort Lauderdale. So an isolated tornado or two will be possible today. Tomorrow, the threat is more elevated, where we have a 5% tornado risk, including basically anyone along or south of I-4. So Tampa, Orlando, Daytona Beach, Cape Canaveral, Melbourne, Fort Pierce, Okeechobee, Sarasota, Fort Myers, Naples, Key West, Marathon, Miami, and as well as West Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale, all included in that 5% tornado risk. We also have a 2% tornado risk in effect for those near Palm Coast, and then just off to the north of Tampa near Spring Hill, Florida. And Thursday, which is tossing trampolines on tall trees Thursday, we also have another 2% tornado risk for those along the southeastern part of Florida near the Treasure Coast, near Cape Canaveral and Melbourne, and then back through areas like Miami and as well as Fort Lauderdale and West Palm Beach. Now, another big concern that we're going to be talking about is the potential for storm surge. And storm surge is expected to be the most life-threatening impact out of this hurricane, and it usually is with almost every hurricane. We are expecting the potential for upwards of 10 to 15 feet of storm surge in Tampa Bay. For reference, if we have 10 to 15 feet of storm surge, this is what it would look like. Right along the immediate coastline, 15 feet of storm surge would go to the top of a standard 2-story building. That is substantial. And as well, I mean, for reference as well, this is basically the length of a semi truck cab that is 20 feet long, going up in direction. So that's obviously very significant. That is very high water, and that is extremely life-threatening. If you are in any of those evacuation zones along the coastline and you've been ordered for mandatory evacuations for life, which is, again, just not worth it with something like this. Mother Nature is not going to mess around tomorrow. So make sure if you're anywhere along the immediate coastline, you need to be prepared for the potential for storm surge. In addition to that, we are looking at 6 to 10 feet of storm surge for area over in Yankeetown. Surge is the hurricane upgraded to
Let's see here. We got problems. We always got issues. Give me a second.
We'll talk more about it in a minute, though. Just
All
double
right.
check.
It's how you do this. We go into my reliable box weather. And if there's commercials, I apologize for the commercials. And yeah, it's very, very slow. Internet.
Whether you're Hurricane HQ, I'm Ian Oliver.
All right.
This is our ongoing coverage of Hurricane Milton, a powerful storm. We're waiting on new information from the hurricane hunters and from the National Hurricane Center. Brand new complete update comes out at 5 p.m. We've got our hurricane specialist, Brian Norcross, digging into all the latest data. So we'll have some important new information coming up closer to the top of the hour. This is where we stand right now. And for where we're at right now, it's everything you need to know. The warnings, hurricane warnings, both coasts and everywhere in the middle, from the Tampa Bay side, the Gulf side, all the way over to the Space Coast, up toward Jacksonville, down south. This whole zone from Charlotte Harbor, Fort Myers, down toward Naples, up through Levy County, Cedar Key. This is a sprawling area of hurricane warnings, which means expect hurricane conditions. We saw Milton go through this very efficient eyewall replacement cycle last night. As it did so, as is always the case, you get that outer ring, an outer eyewall that forms. It takes some of the energy away from the inner one, but that outer eyewall takes over and constricts. And boy, has it done that so far over the last several hours. That eye has opened up. Very clear presentation once again, and you've got this strong core. We're thinking there's a reasonable possibility that we get this update from the National Hurricane Center. We're talking about a Category 5 storm again. For the time being, it's operating in a very reasonable pocket of atmosphere that's conducive for this to maintain its intensity as a top-end hurricane, or even get just a touch stronger. You've got this dip in the jet stream, some hostile upper level winds that this will encounter and start to interact with closer to landfall. Usually we're saying, great, hostile upper level winds, that'll start to weaken a storm. Yes, that's the case to an extent, but it's problematic this go around because it starts to add subtropical characteristics to this, where it loses some of its shape and its top end winds, but the storm gets a whole lot bigger. And there isn't enough time for it to weaken considerably. So if you're talking about a 3 as opposed to a 5, but it's a major hurricane and it's spread out over a larger area and impacting more people, that's not necessarily a better scenario. None of these scenarios are good scenarios. This is an awful situation playing out as we get closer to landfall in Florida. This is the maximum wind potential. You do notice it's more or less a map of the Tampa Bay area down south toward Charlotte and Lee counties, but that color representing 110 mile per hour winds plus for gusts that are possible. And depending on where this center moves ashore, I know we've been talking about it a lot, but that mouth of Tampa Bay, call it the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, it's very important. Somewhere in this whole zone through here, we'll likely see a historic, a record surge, even though we set that record less than 2 weeks ago in some of these spots from Helene. If it moves south of the bay, it would push an awful surge into places like Longboat Key, south down to Siesta Key, all the way down to Southwest Florida. That would be a better scenario for the immediate Tampa Bay metro, at least for places like downtown Tampa and St. Pete. If this moves north of the mouth of the bay and up into Pinellas, that would represent still a bad surge for places in Manatee and Sarasota and Point South, but that could represent a more worst case scenario for the Tampa Bay area in terms of storm surge flooding. So these little shifts in the forecast models matter a lot, and it's impossible to say at this time if it's going to be north or south of the bay. There are reasonable solutions and reliable models that tell us both of those scenarios. And by the time Milton makes landfall in Florida, it'll be nearly 2 weeks since Hurricane Helene. That was a Category 4 storm that devastated the West Coast. That was 100 miles offshore. The destruction it caused and the debris left behind still clutter many neighborhoods. And for that reason, Governor Ron DeSantis issued a mandate to expedite cleanup in counties like Pinellas, where residents work to board up their homes and their businesses. Fox Weather storm specialist Mike Seidel is live from Madeira Beach. That's a barrier island in Pinellas County, part of the 35 miles of beautiful sandy beaches. And Mike, what we see there are scenes like that. There was not enough time to get cleaned up from Helene.
Not nearly enough time. We've been showing you them cleaning up on Gulf Boulevard, which is the main north-south route from Clearwater all the way down to St. Pete Beach. The side streets, the neighborhoods, piles of debris, everything's been pulled out. We've got mattresses, we've got drywall, piles of drywall. That's a big problem, because if the drywall gets wet, you've got to get rid of it. You know, get up to where it's been wet, and you have to, what they say, remediate, take that out and replace it, and then you have to put the mud back on and sand it. A lot of folks in some of these areas go with stone floors and, you know, solid brick walls, and that way all you have to do is get the wet vac. But a lot of homes don't do that. And again, it's the first level that got hit this time. Surge values 5, 6, 7 feet. Some places I talked to locals 8 to 9 feet. But the bottom line is the lower levels got wet if you were on the ground level and didn't have any stilts. Like the condos on the beaches all are up. So these are the neighborhoods that are not going to get cleaned up. There's just not enough time. We've got landfall coming up in about 30, 32, 33 hours. Although, Ian, I saw the new 12Z Euro operational, and it's got landfall at about 8 a.m. 12Z on Thursday morning. That seems to be the outlier in one of the slower models. Let's hope not, where it's going to be a long night tomorrow night. So we've got debris down here, as you can see, lining the road here. And then as far as the eye can see, don't worry about the car. I wouldn't worry about the vehicle. I think they're going to be okay. They're just trying to get through. Some of these folks, these are people that live here that can get access to the island. But at 7 p.m. tonight, whoever's on the island can stay, but nobody else can get back on, even if you're a business owner or a homeowner. So let's get over here. Ben West from Miami shooting the video today. And look at that. Both sides of the street, it's like infinity. Debris, debris, debris. And this is all going to be floating around and picked up by 100-mile-an-hour hurricane force plus wind gust tomorrow night and early Thursday as we get the brunt of Milton. No matter if the center goes in a little south of here, a little north of here, we're still going to have a lot of wind, and we're still going to have surge. It may not be as high or low, depending on the exact track. And we're going to get a tremendous amount of rainfall. So everything's going to be floating around and then blowing around. And everything get picked up out of the water. And then what happens Thursday morning, all the water goes away. It's left behind with Gulf sand and debris. So it may be tough to get around on Thursday just because of what's been moved into the roadway, whether it's mattresses or heavy-duty metal stuff, or vehicles. There are more vehicles out here right now that have not been moved, probably because they can't be moved, like these two over here at the putt-putt course. So they may end up floating somewhere if the surge is higher than last time. And there are boats in the harbor, Ian, that may end up on the streets. A lot of boats on the water, they're up above the water. Yeah. You know, if you get enough wind and surge, they can get ripped from their moorings. A lot can happen, and a lot will happen.
Yes, I will be there.
Gets in here later tomorrow into Thursday morning with all this debris
waiting
to be moved somewhere else.
It's see, like Jenny, thank you for coming in. Appreciate you coming in.
And Mike had mentioned the Euro. We're curious about that because it initialized.
I am watching the weather for you guys.
169 millibars. We know it's down at 923.
Well, so thank you for coming by. Hold on.
Out some of the high-res models are still farther off to the north and a little bit quicker. So one of the many.
All right, sorry about that. By the way, yes, it looks like the West Coast of Florida is going to get hammered. It's going to be like Tennessee hammer. Can't touch this. Dun, dun, dun. But yeah. If you're watching, checking me on the phone on the way to the store. Oh, by the way, you're going to the store. Good luck, man. People are going crazy. Yes, I'll be praying for everybody right there. But yes, thank you, CLA Jonas, for coming in. Robin Chat. Oh, by the way, Robin Chat will be on tomorrow at 7:30 Central Time, 8:30 Eastern. So go ahead and take care of them. I gotta go back to the weather. This stuff is getting serious.
Things that we'll be watching. That's our storm specialist, Mike Seidel. Thank you. Evacuations are underway in western Florida as Hurricane Milton approaches. Tampa's airport closed this morning, and farther up I-4 off to the east, the airport in Orlando will close tomorrow. Opportunities to get away are disappearing fast. Up next, we'll check in with our Steve Bender. He's on the coast in Sarasota. We'll also talk with the CEO of Orlando's airport about the rush to get out of Milton's way. We'll be right back on Fox Weather. Stay with us.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, and welcome to the show. Welcome to a little bit of prime time. We got see like Jenny coming in there. We got to go ahead and do this. Robert, Chad, I hope you're all still on. I need hours. I'm trying to get in touch with my stepfather. Da-da-da-da. We gotta go around to the store. One more last minute stuff. Yeah, last minute stuff. They'll be on tomorrow. But it looks like it's gonna be Cat 5 in the next couple hours. And we for another eye, so that means it's spreading out. So we're waiting for him for the next report. The mud files. What's happening? You ever do some weather reports? So, okay. There we go.
Welcome back to Fox Weather, your Hurricane HQ. We've got all kinds of analysis happening right now in studio. You're seeing a couple live pictures. You've got St. Petersburg, that's in the Tampa Bay area on Florida's west coast, and Orlando, that's farther off to the east, out I-4. Both cities see big impacts from Hurricane Milton. In fact, there's a hurricane warning up in both places, meaning expect hurricane conditions within 36 hours. But let's talk about where we stand with Milton. Just know we're waiting on that new update from the National Hurricane Center. Probably at some point in the next 15 minutes, up to about the top of the hour, we'll get that 5 p.m. update in from them. And we'll get a new forecast track too. Key message here is that this will be a larger storm arriving on Florida's west coast as a major, but as that wind field grows, as I've been mentioning, it impacts more people, and it's still a very powerful storm when it gets there. So I would be less hung up on what category this is on arrival to the west coast and pay attention to the impacts that we're expecting in some of these areas. That's the look at the Fox model. And yes, because of that interaction with some of the stronger upper level winds off to the north, you start getting a bit of a comma shape to this. That may enhance some of the activity, some of the thunderstorms on the northern side of this storm. And with that by 7 o'clock Thursday morning, plus minus a bit with the timing of this, is a little spread in the forecast models. You see some of those impacts spreading across the peninsula. Wind is a problem. The surge, of course, on both sides we've talked about, but this is something to pay attention to, the amount of rain. We could see some spots locally picking up in excess of a foot. It's a level 4 out of 4 flash flood threat from the Weather Prediction Center. All right, we've talked about what's happening across the entire peninsula. Let's get back to the Gulf Coast. That's where we find a Fox weather meteorologist, Steve Bender. He's down in the Sarasota area. Steve, last time we talked with you, you were on Lido Key. Have you been moving around? I know there is still so much debris everywhere, still so much left to clean up from Helene.
Yeah, it's a good question, Ian. We are staying on Lido Key, but we're going down different streets because here's the deal. This key is closed, and if we get out, there's no re-entry. So we cannot give anybody updates throughout the evening time. So we're going to hunker down here tonight throughout our show, and then we'll show you other areas. I have been in Tampa and Sarasota throughout the day, and we'll paint you that picture here in just a moment. I do want to show you, again, all that debris, as you had mentioned, but when you look into this, you start to see more of those household items, right? A mattress, multiple mattresses, bedrooms that have been completely gutted. Then you have some of those dressers that come out. And when you start looking at in all of this, there's these things that stand out, and you have books that are there. So you have this little book here. I would think for me, as a new father, I'd probably read this to Yulia as a bedtime story. But this now is just part of this debris pile that we have left over from Helene. The concern is Milton is expected to be even worse. Up to 15 feet of storm surge could sweep all of this, easily blocks down the road, if not miles. Walk with us because I want to show you that this is not isolated. We're not just pinpointing one pile of debris and saying, oh, this could be bad. We are looking at entire blocks that feel like this. Please be careful. This is another aspect. This mud is slushy, it's stuck, so you can't really get any of those crews. But here's just a row that we choose, and we look down all of this debris. The same story is told each and every building, whether it's a home, a condo, a resort, all of them still trying to recover from Helene, and right on the heels of it is even a stronger storm. Again, this area up to 15 feet storm surge would sweep all of this. Many of these vehicles are just left because everybody on this island, for the most part, is evacuated. We have talked with Sarasota police, and they had said they are officially closing in. They're going to create some barriers at 7 p.m. tonight, and nobody's allowed back in. So if you stay here, they are not going to be able to come out and get you. So, Ian, it has been eerie throughout the day. Even in Tampa and Sarasota on my right hand, it was quieter than usual, and people, when they said goodbye, right, Ian, they would hug them, and they would look at each other, and they'd just say, stay safe. I want to see you on the other side of this. It just seems a little more powerful when you're talking about those messages when people say goodbye.
Yeah, Steve, so many important messages, and folks made a lot of tough choices. They've made them over the past couple of days, and there is still just that tiny window left to leave the places where you are, which you will as this dangerous storm approaches. That's Fox weather meteorologist Steve Bender in Sarasota. Thank you.
We're feeling every bit of that here. I would say we've got some gusts at times, like right here, up to about 60 miles per hour. So yeah, clearly as that band approaches, those winds are getting stronger. Yeah, there goes the playhouse. It's just like that. So that's what I would say. That's why we're keeping our head on the swivel here. As you look at this, yeah, that's really starting to pick up now.
Those were some of the aforementioned hurricane gusts. That wasn't even a full 2 weeks ago. I was on St. Pete Beach in Florida as Hurricane Helene roared its way by. That was on a path eventually up toward the Big Bend. The center of circulation moved about 100 miles offshore, but that was a big storm. Today, the focus for St. Pete Beach residents has shifted from cleanup to evacuation as Hurricane Milton approaches for what could be a direct hit. Right now, we want to bring in the mayor of St. Pete Beach, Adrian Petrilla, for an update on the situation. Mayor, we thank you for talking with us here on Fox Weather. What a brutal situation this was, a record surge, not even a full 2 weeks ago. And we talked about how it wasn't the worst case scenario, not expecting that potential worst case scenario could play out less than a couple of weeks later. What's the top priority in St. Pete Beach right now?
Mm-hmm.
The top priority right now is to make sure that everybody who can evacuates. At this point right now, our top priority is to make sure that everybody evacuates as soon as possible. The time to prepare has already passed. At this point, it is time to get out.
Mayor, we could see some of the debris waited for pickup behind you. There wasn't a reasonable enough amount of time to be able to recover from something like we saw with Helene, with that record surge. I was right there in St. Pete Beach. I was farther south in Pass-a-Grille. I saw what the surge did to the dunes too, completely obliterated them. And now some of this water can come in from the Gulf unabated into some of the communities. How much of a concern is that, knowing what your residents just went through, that they really need to heed the warnings to leave because you've lost that line of defense?
Absolutely. I mean, Helene was absolutely catastrophic for our island. And now we still have debris piled up, as you can see behind me. So it almost doesn't matter if the storm goes north, we're going to get storm surge. All this will be washed all over the streets. It'll be almost impossible. If it goes to the south, we're going to have heavy winds. We'll have flying debris, just shrapnel everywhere. And that's not going to be safe for anyone, no matter where the storm goes. Again, it is time to evacuate. It is not going to be safe here for the next 2 days.
Mayor, seeing is believing, right? And it can be a challenge if folks don't have something to draw upon, a storm of reference. Everybody has that now, and it was less than 2 weeks ago. Do you feel like there's been a change in sentiment at all? I mean, we've seen the pictures from the causeway, the bridges, I-75, I-4. It feels like people are heeding these evacuation orders.
Absolutely. And that's one of the good things that we've seen is I haven't seen many cars here recently. It's been mostly empty all over the island. I'm glad to see that people are listening this time, that they are evacuating. We did have a huge number of people evacuate during Helene. And for this one, we're seeing even greater numbers of people evacuating, and that's a good thing.
Mayor, this is a wonderful place going through a brutal time right now. We know there are challenging days ahead, but we wish you the best, and we hope to check in with you during this and beyond. That's the mayor of St. Pete Beach, Adrian Petrilla. Thanks for talking with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, heart breaks for so many of these communities up and down the coastline, knowing what they've just gone through and then considering what's heading in their direction now. You see what it looks like in Tampa. There's been a decent amount of rain. We've been watching that with that weak area of low pressure that was just around over the last several days, kept a coverage of rain in the area. Keep in mind, I'm looking up at the Fox Weather Alert System. We're waiting on the brand new update from the National Hurricane Center coming out at 5 p.m. That'll be a complete update, a lot of new information in it. We've got Fox Weather's hurricane specialist, Brian Norcross, standing by to help us dig into that once we get it. But you see what's gone on here. Milton, back at 155 miles per hour. This is as top end of Cat 4 as you get. Any upgrade, and we're talking about a Category 5 hurricane. Once again, it's pressure at 923 millibars. We've been waiting for the hurricane hunters to get there and watching this thing on Visible. Boy, does it look like a Cat 5 once again. It's got that symmetry, this powerful inner core. We're staring right into the top of it on Visible Satellite. This is the high-resolution imagery from the GOES series of satellites. And you can actually see, again, right into the top of that eye. It's wild how much that is cleared back out. This is a top-end hurricane. We saw it go from a Category 1 to a Category 5 in 18 hours. And it's done a decent job of maintaining some of its top end intensity. It's had that a fairly favorable atmosphere that it's been working with. That does change, but it's not all good as it starts to interact with those stronger upper level winds off to the north, which spread out this overall wind field. Then you look at this at 10 p.m. This is the analysis from the National Hurricane Center. So
advisory in now.
Okay.
Cat 5 165 just popped it up for you.
Wow. Okay. So Brian Norcross had given this thing the eyeball test. We had looked at it. We said we would be shocked if this wasn't back up to at least 160 miles per hour. It's exceeded that. This is 165 miles per hour. Milton is a Category 5 hurricane once again. So here we go. This is the brand new update. 5 p.m. from the National Hurricane Center. Maximum sustained winds in that well-defined, that intense inner core up to 165 miles per hour. Its motion east-northeast at 9. So we did see that jog off to the east. We're going to dig into that. This thing briefly almost wobbled out of the cone off to the east and southeast. Its pressure down to 918 millibars. And that's part of this too. A little curious to see what happens with these forecast models because the globals, like the American, the Euro, those are a touch further off to the south, but they're initializing the storm something in the 960s. We know that it's down at 918. The high resolution forecast models, which are maybe doing a little bit better job resolving the beast that is Milton once again, those are a touch farther off to the north. And that's part of the reason why there's some spread here in the solutions that could play out. We saw it on the visible satellite, and we're digging in to the details that they put out from the National Hurricane Center. This is new too. So you've got tomorrow evening, this is still at 150. It's still a strong 4 at that point. On approach, this is the key message. You say it's weakening, great, 125. The wind field is expanding in a significant way. The size of the wind field likely doubles between now and landfall. And this is still a major hurricane at that point. It means more people will be impacted by this. It may hold more of that intensity as a bigger storm farther across the peninsula, and a bigger storm just straight up pushes more water into the coastline. It bumps up that's why it's so important as we're watching to see where that center moves ashore sometime late tomorrow and into the overnight. A lot to get to as we analyze the 5 o'clock advisory from the NHC. Stick with us here on Fox Weather.
now's the time to execute your plan. You do have time to get to a shelter. You have time to evacuate further than that if that's what you want, but that time is running out.
Right now on Fox Weather, millions on Florida's west coast are scrambling to safety as Hurricane Milton threatens to deliver a devastating blow tomorrow night or into early Thursday. Hurricane and storm surge warnings are up, schools and businesses are closed, and evacuation orders are in effect as Florida's coast, including the Tampa Bay metro area, could see an unsurvivable 15 feet of storm surge somewhere along the western coast. May see that. This isn't a disaster that's waiting to happen. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of where and for whom, for how many people. Milton is a dangerous and now Category 5 storm. Once again, we just got that update from the NHC, and will make landfall as a life-threatening major hurricane. Up next, everything that you need to know about Milton to keep you and your family safe from Fox Weather hurricane specialist Brian Norcross and our team of meteorologists and reporters. Fox Weather is your Hurricane HQ. And this is a Fox Weather alert as we're now just a little bit more than a day away, a little bit more than 24 hours away from devastation on Florida's west coast and well beyond both coasts, truly, with hurricane warnings up from the Gulf side all the way over to the Atlantic. Right now, it's 5 o'clock on the East Coast, 2 p.m. out west. I'm Ian Oliver, and this is Fox Weather Now. Right now, powerful Hurricane Milton is a Category 5 once again, making its way across the Gulf of Mexico on a path toward a landfall on Florida's west coast sometime late tomorrow or early Thursday. And given the strength of this storm track and the danger that its storm surge presents, there's no way to prevent a disaster. But for residents in and around these warned areas, there's time to prevent a tragedy. It's this evening, truly. You're running out of time to safely move out of those areas. And if your local officials ask you to go, please do, as Milton is a very dangerous storm. There you go, a Category 5 once again. So we do want to get the latest on that new update from the National Hurricane Center from Fox Weather's hurricane specialist, Brian Norcross. He's here with us this afternoon in studio. And Brian, we were waiting on the hurricane hunters. They've been a little slow to get on the scene, but they're going to be in the storm soon. We were waiting on the 5 o'clock update. You said that's got to be at least 160, and it is. It's up to 165.
Right. Yeah. Not a surprise. Looking at it after we saw it yesterday, this is a bigger version of what we saw yesterday in terms of the satellite presentation. And the upgrade was exclusively done because of the satellite presentation. There are two groups within NOAA that do that analysis, and that was the consensus at the Hurricane Center of the information they had of 165 miles per hour. There you see this perfect donut shape is what we see in Category 5 hurricanes. 165 pressure, 918. Think of the pressure as the amount of energy in the storm. So a low pressure means the energy is there, but if the storm is bigger, the energy is spread out over a wider area, so you can actually have lower top winds, but a bigger storm with low pressure. So the low pressure and the wind speed don't exactly go together. Now let's look at this thing close up. I mean, it is really stunning to see when we look close up there. Look in there now, and you can see a couple interesting things here. First of all, we're looking here from the new GOES-19 satellite, it's called, looking straight down into it. That's the Gulf of Mexico that you're seeing in there. And you see this wobble here. It didn't quite wobble. That was some little bad data made it look like it wobbled more. But the important thing about what happened here is it slowed down in here, and now it's resumed its path again. But in that slowing down, as I'll show you in a second, it's gotten a little off track, and that off track is going to be reflected in the cone in shifting the cone south just a little bit. That means maybe more storm surge farther south, maybe into the Fort Myers area into Charlotte County, Charlotte Harbor, and so forth. That little bit of shift. But again, it can shift back again. We go through another one of these eyewall replacement cycles, and it does some sort of wobbling around. So here's the new cone. 165 is the idea. And now we're talking about when we see Wednesday AM, we're talking about overnight tonight into tomorrow. So maintaining more or less this intensity. But if it goes to an eyewall replacement cycle, it might weaken, expand in size, intensify again. So in this area here, we still have kind of a pristine environment. Then when we get to tomorrow, this is tomorrow afternoon now, starting the weakening process is the thought, because the upper level winds become more hostile. Right now, the landfall is delayed a little bit. This line is 2 a.m. Eastern time. So now a little after 2 a.m., and as I'll show you, some of the models are even later than that into the overnight and early morning hours tomorrow. Then we're going through Orlando with nominally 90, 100 mile an hour wind gusts, thinking Hurricane Charlie, but on a larger scale through central Florida, and then offshore where the winds are coming back this way, storm surge on the northeast Florida coast, thinking Nicole or thinking Irma in the Jacksonville area as a possibility. Here was the previous cone, and I want to show you what happened here. So there's where the storm was at 2 p.m. Eastern time, and here we go forward in time through the afternoon. And look, it took this kind of right side of the cone track, so now that's relocated everything over to the right, and that's ended up with the cone a little bit farther south. Now, that doesn't mean there is no threat in the Tampa Bay area that could wobble back. Yes, we go with the data that we have at the moment, but that's what happened this afternoon, is that internal structure wobble around, move a little this way, and then get back on track. That happens, and that's why there's a cone, and that's why there is this uncertainty. All right, so where are we in terms of the rain and the timing and the effects? Here's the band that's been across South Florida today. It's been raining off and on, although it's lifted a little bit north now, but this is related to that other system and this old front that's sitting here. And here's your hurricane down here, and here it comes, moving north. Now we're going to look at a reforming of the storm. Remember, now at the moment it's a donut, but it's going to turn into a comma. And so it's going to be shaped very differently. And so the top of the comma is going to be some of the worst weather associated with this thing. And then we're going to have these bands. And exactly how intense the bands are and where they set up and when they move through is impossible to say at this point. But south of central Florida, expect intense bands that aren't really especially reflected here in this simulation. But each one that gets closer to the storm will be stronger as the storm moves in the general direction of Tampa, Sarasota, Venice, and the west coast of Florida. All right, then here it comes. And there you see those bands sweeping through south of the line from Tampa to about Titusville, Cape Canaveral, more or less. So these are bands down here. But up here, look at the solid thunderstorm cells enhanced by the jet stream. So we have a lot going on there with up to the north. And then in terms of the timing, here we go with the timing. And watch it here, watch the time up here. Here we are at 2 a.m. Notice almost all of the computer models are after 2 a.m. now. A few say, no, it'll go faster, but the consensus is back here slower than 2 a.m. Thursday morning. So that means more time. And then here we are, 8 a.m. Thursday morning. That's kind of a consensus of these models. Hurricane Center is a little faster than that in their forecast, but the possibility of a much slower storm. There's the hurricane warnings you know about. The only change here is that down in the Fort Myers, Charlotte County, Port Charlotte Harbor area, up to 12 feet now of storm surge forecast as the possible top storm surge if it comes in at high tide. And then on the East Coast, we still have the threat with it coming back this way as the storm moves on offshore. So lots and lots going on here and lots more to talk about. Ian?
The National Hurricane Center has issued a serious warning stating Milton has the potential to be one of the most destructive hurricanes on record for West Central Florida. Let's go there now. Fox Weather meteorologist Bob Van Dillen in Tampa. Bob, as you're watching this, and folks know right there in the Tampa Bay area, very hurricane savvy people, all of these little wobbles matter. A landfall north of where you are and south of where you are, two very different stories.
You just heard Brian talk about it, right? You're so right, Ian. You talk about a wobble up to the north, bringing us on the extreme outer eye wall or inner eye wall, going right across the Tampa Bay, which is behind me, would send a wall of water between 10 and 15 feet right on through. The last time we had a 15-foot storm surge in Tampa Bay was 1848, and that flooded what is eventually now downtown Tampa. So if you look at me right here, we had a squall line go by just now. Has nothing to do with the hurricane at this point, Ian. This is just your typical summertime stuff, a little bit of a frontal boundary. But it's cooled things down. You can't see the bridges any longer. But Hillsborough County on my right, you've got Pinellas County on my left. You're talking about the barrier islands are shutting down at 7 o'clock this afternoon. So if you're still there, you're not going to be able to get out. That's one of the things. Also, zones A, B, and C for Pinellas County, mandatory evacuation. Where I'm standing right now in Hillsborough County, you can see how low I am to the water, right? We're in zone A. Zone A and B, mandatory evacuation. In fact, as we watch the winds and the rain begin to develop a little bit later on tomorrow afternoon, we're going to see exactly where that low goes. So if it goes the center of circulation, the eye wall goes right across the bay, that is worst case scenario. If it goes just up the north, worst case scenario. If it goes down to the south, we're still going to get that huge sloshing of water coming in. But the biggest storm surge would be just south of that region. But it's such a broad wind field, like we've all been saying. Just about everybody on the west coast of Florida is going to get some kind of an impact as it goes down. In fact, it's not just here. It's going to go rolling right over I-4 through Orlando with a heavy batch of rain. A lot of wind out there for Central Florida, Lake Okeechobee. Those areas are going to get raked. And then it goes across the north where we have a brand new set of problems as the winds come in off the Atlantic Ocean on Thursday afternoon. Storm surge warnings from Cape Canaveral through Daytona Beach into Jacksonville, St. Johns River in Jacksonville. Could see a 3 to 5 foot storm surge right there. And then it goes up the coast in areas by Georgia, even the low country of South Carolina. Even though the storm itself, you saw the path goes right offshore, you're still going to get lashed with the wind and the rain and that really opposite side wind coming at you, a storm surge there. So Ian, update for you right now. After this, I'm going to drive out to Daytona Beach and I'm going to set up shop there and we're going to see what it looks like on the Atlantic side.
Glad to hear that, Bob. You're showing us right there. There are so many areas across the Tampa Bay region that are vulnerable to even just a few feet of water rise. I couldn't believe what I saw with the record surge in Helene, which was 6 to a little bit more than 7 spots. I can't even visualize or imagine what double that could look like. So we certainly hope that doesn't play out. Bob, safe travels. We'll talk to you tomorrow at Bob Van Dillen. Thank you. The popular vacation city of St. Pete Beach, Florida, is also preparing for its second hurricane in 2 weeks. The city, which sits on the Gulf Coast, it's a barrier island, a beautiful one, could see life-threatening storm surge and likely the hurricane-force winds. This, while the region is still cleaning up after what is now considered a glancing blow from Hurricane Helene. More on what's coming to Western Florida when Fox Weather comes right back.
Hey!
This is a Fox Weather Alert. Welcome back. A couple of live pictures for you. One from St. Petersburg, St. Pete on the left side. You've got Orlando on the right side of the screen. Both of these spots are under a hurricane warning, meaning expect hurricane conditions within the next 36 hours. This is going to be a devastating hurricane, yes, both on Florida's Gulf Coast, but all the way over to the Atlantic side and everywhere in between. We got that update from the National Hurricane Center back at the top of the hour. And Milton, a Category 5 storm once again. It went through that eyewall replacement cycle efficiently last night. It may be starting to do that again, but for the time being, these winds are back up to 165 miles per hour. Its motion east-northeast at 9 miles per hour. That's going to be the eventual motion that takes it up toward Florida's west coast, and its minimum central pressure down to 918 millibars. The issue here is that as the storm goes through those internal processes, the wind field will be growing. Same story as it gets a little bit farther off to the north and starts interacting with those stronger winds along. Florida's Gulf Coast is preparing for a direct hit from Milton. Tampa General Hospital is putting up a wall to protect from flooding. And here it is right there. You're looking at a video of it, holding back water from Helene. That was less than 2 weeks ago. Senior Director of Public Safety at Tampa General Hospital, Tony Venezia, joins us now. Tony, thanks for being here with us on Fox Weather. Can you tell us about this wall? We've seen these pictures. How did it go through Hurricane Helene? Did you get any water in the hospital? It looked like that wall did a pretty good job doing what it was designed to do, holding back those floodwaters.
That's right. It worked just terrific. The actual aqua fence is really a deployable waterproof flood fence that allows us additional 15 feet protection around a surge. In Helene, they did just what it was designed to do, and you could literally be dry on one side of the wall while there was probably 4 to 5 feet on the other side of the wall.
It is pretty amazing tech, no question. This was truly the first real test, mostly successful, as you're saying. As you look forward to what we could see, depending on where exactly that center moves ashore, when we're talking about a surge that could approach 15 feet, we saw in Helene the water was, halfway or so up the wall. Do you feel as though it could hold up to a storm like this? I mean, we know how much more pressure that added water would put on the wall.
Yeah, actually, the water helps us because that's what stabilizes the wall on the ground. The pressure of the weight of the water does. So we feel good about that. We've also got large pumps on the backside of the wall. So if we happen to see a breach, we would just activate the pumps and just pump the water back out again. So, it's the system. It worked great for Helene. We expect the same with Milton.
Yeah, it's amazing. I wanted to ask you more about those pumps because, yes, if you get any sort of breach, you need them, but also 8 to 12 inches of rain possible over the top of that, which there's no real defense from the sky, of course. I got a friend, I used to live down in the Tampa Bay area. A lot of my friends are still down there. His wife is scheduled to deliver their first baby at Tampa General Hospital in 2 weeks' time. There's a lot of uneasiness, obviously. What would you say to folks that have something like that, or a procedure or a surgery in the short term? Is Tampa General going to be able to stand up necessarily to an event like this?
Yeah, we feel really good about where we're at. We're a battle-tested team here. We opened a new central energy plant about 2 years ago. Our generators, our fuel, our boilers are 35 feet up in the air. Our direct line from the local energy source is buried under the channel. But there's a lot of mitigation efforts going on. We know what our responsibility is to the community of the Tampa Bay area and really across the state of Florida to deliver world-class care. And we plan on doing that today, tomorrow, and into the future.
Tony, I was still down in the Tampa Bay area when this wall was being discussed, the idea of it. It's amazing to see it implemented and watching it hold up to Helene. We wish you the very best through what is going to be another challenging stretch of days ahead. That's Tony Venezia, the Senior Director of Public Safety at Tampa General Hospital. Thank you. All right, let's head a little bit further off to the south from there, down to Bradenton Beach, and that is where we find Fox Weather correspondent Robert Ray. Robert, you've been showing us from across the whole region the scenes of the devastation. There just wasn't enough time, plain and simple, to recover from Helene. These places are vulnerable, they're exposed to more surge, and you've got a major heading in your direction.
Honestly, Ian, it's hard to wrap your head around. For this crew, and I think for everybody up and down the coast here in the Tampa area, this is Bradenton Beach. Look at this neighborhood road right off the main drag, and I mean, look at the debris that is left over from Helene, and the 5 feet of surge plus that came in here, and the sand that they got pushed in from the beaches and the Gulf of Mexico. And it's just like what do you do, right? They tried all this. Don't think there wasn't a concerted effort. There absolutely was. And look at this. Just illustrates what's been going on here in the past 13 months. Well, here's a sign, a boarded up, business. Milton, go away. Okay, we got that. Idalia, go away. That's 13 months ago. Okay, another system that wreaked havoc here. Sandbags below Helene, go away. That's 11 days ago. All right, it just doesn't end. Tropical Storm Debbie, which actually was a hurricane when it brushed this area and then made landfall up in the Nature Coast. We covered that. That is the situation that caused havoc here. Sandbags here. These are fresh ones. These are not from Helene. They put these in here for Milton. They will do absolutely no good, unfortunately. But you know what? You got to do what you got to do. As we walk on the piles of sand, 10 to 15 feet of storm surge, Ian, is expected here. And some of these other barrier islands, 5 feet did this. We're standing on, 3 feet of sand, mailbox right here, ice cream shop, piece of wood holding up part of the window, the ice cream right there. You look inside. I don't know, Lloyd, if you can go into that window, you just smell rotting dairy in here. You see chairs piled up, sand and mud on the sides. As a light rain falls here, you can smell the rain. Actually, and then the Gulf of Mexico right over there. It looks, take away the clouds, and it looks like a nice evening, right? But merciless Milton is out there. A Category 5, it just re-strengthened. 165 mile an hour winds. We are not expecting it to be that strong when it hits, but do we know? No, we don't, and we don't know the exact position of the landfall. Somewhere around here, as look at these vehicles coming by, big excavating equipment. Don't see this very often. Yeah, in the past 2 hours, seen a couple vehicles, National Guard and Sheriff's Office, and then we just get this. I just read this from Greg Diamond, one of our incredible meteorologists back in New York, and I just want to be accurate when I read this. He put this out on X. I retweeted it, and I want to make sure that I'm accurate. And I'm just blown away because it has to do with Southwest Florida and Fort Myers Beach. The surge forecast now is as high between 12 to up to 12 feet. It was up to 15 feet in Ian. We know what happened with 15 feet in Ian 2 years ago. I saw it. I experienced it. I saw it happen in the aftermath, and the deaths and the destruction and the rebuilding that is continuing to go on there. That's an area that's also been hit by surge in the past 2 months. Remarkable. What are they going to do if that amount of surge comes in? Start the rebuilding process again? Well, they're going to have to. And these areas as well. Speaking of National Guard, here they are. About 4 trucks, as Lloyd will see. And let me see if I can stop. They may not be able to talk to me, but let me just see, gentlemen. You guys okay? Yes. I'm with Fox Weather. National Guard patrolling these streets here right now.
Yeah, right now we're just doing a presence control.
Where are you from?
We're from Fort Myers.
You're from Fort Myers. Okay. Everybody doing okay?
Yes. How are you guys?
We're good. Yeah, we're good. We're reporting. We're not going to be on this beach, obviously, tomorrow. We're getting out of here tonight to be unsurvivable. I take it you guys are going to move off the island because of the surge as well. When is your deployment off this island?
No idea.
No idea. Okay, well, you got to get out before tomorrow night, that's for sure. All right, well, thank you for everything you guys do, okay? All right, soldier on, appreciate it. That's the convoy.
They're coming through. They're making sure everyone's safe. A young man, I don't know, he probably wasn't more than 19. Just amazing. As you see, the trucks move through here, as serious as it gets. It's the largest activation of the National Guard in Florida history, according to Governor Ron DeSantis. Ian, they are all over. Robert Koff, excuse me.
You talk about so many different aspects of service, right? And that service member just said what? He was from Fort Myers, and he's not even hearing the update that you just gave us and what we heard from Greg in the Fox Forecast Center.
I should have given it to him as well. It's just there's so much going on. But honestly, I probably, in hindsight, he probably doesn't need to know that right now. He's got enough on his mind, right?
Yeah.
Honest to God, you could see in that young man's eyes just sort of the concern. And notice he asked me how we're doing too. America, man, oh man, we're a great place, and we don't need this right now. This is a merciless situation.
Yeah, Robert. Well, something you said stuck with me. 2 weeks isn't enough time to recover from Helene. We've seen all those pictures over the last little bit less than 2 weeks. 2 years, not enough time to recover from the devastation that we saw in Southwest Florida. All the while, we got more of the same, perhaps worse in some of these spots on the way from Milton. That's Fox weather correspondent Robert Ray in Bradenton Beach. Great reporting, Robert. We'll be checking back in with you a lot over the next couple of days. Thank you. If you live in any of the evacuation zones along Florida's west coast, the time for you to get to safety is quickly running out. We're a little bit more than a day away from the landfall of the powerful major hurricane. It's now a Category 5 for the time being, once again. We'll have the latest on Milton's strength and, more importantly, its track. We're also going to check back in with Fox Weather's hurricane specialist, Brian Norcross. He's seeing some interesting data coming in from the hurricane hunters. We do want to check out today's weather warning update sponsored by Realtor.com. I mean, you're looking at what's going on across the country. Your eye is immediately drawn to the southeast with all of that activity related to the tropical weather alerts. It's effectively the entire state of Florida. Yes, there are still some excessive heat advisories and warnings ongoing in parts of California. We're also watching on the other side of things a frost advisory for parts of the upper Midwest. The focus, though, is down in Florida. Stay with us here on Fox Weather as we continue to track Milton.
Today's weather warning update is sponsored by Realtor.com. Get the Realtor.com app to see the environmental risks on every home.
This is a Fox Weather Alert as we're a little bit more than 24 hours away from devastation on Florida's west coast. Good afternoon. We thank you for being here with us on Fox Weather at the bottom of the hour. I'm Ian Oliver. This is Fox Weather Now. And right now, we got a very serious situation unfolding in the Gulf of Mexico. Just now, moments ago, while we were in the break, we got a special update from the National Hurricane Center. Previously, the minimum central pressure, which the hurricane hunters weren't there yet, it was estimated to be about 918 millibars. They've now flown through the inner core, and they're finding a minimum central pressure that's down once again closer to 900 millibars. Keep in mind, that's one measure of the energy in a tropical system. The lower the number, stronger the intensity that we're talking about. So we do want to go back over. We got the whole team here kind of ingesting this data in real time. Get into it. Cody, Dylan, Jane's in the mix now with us, and Brian's back. Brian, you had said this as you were watching in real time some of the data coming in from the hurricane hunters, saying, I think this might be stronger than 165. It is stronger, at least in a minimum central pressure sense.
And I am surprised that they went with 165 here based on the data coming from the hurricane hunters. I think we very well might have 175, 180 mile an hour hurricane out there once again. I mean, this is a classic Category 5 storm, but in any case, it really doesn't make any difference to the eventual outcome of this, because what we care about is what's really going to happen.
That's the question. That's what people want to know. What does this mean right now for what eventually plays out on the West Coast?
The main point is, when you start out with more energy, you have more energy, right? So that energy's got to go somewhere, and what's going to happen to it is it's going to get spread out. So in the new forecast, the updated forecast at 5 p.m. Eastern time from the Hurricane Center, you saw increased storm surge threat in the Fort Myers area with a little track shift to the south, but also an indication of more energy spreading out, hurricane watches farther south in the state of Florida. Let's look at this close up, and you can say, look at that. You're never going to see a better developed hurricane perfectly round like that, and the eye structure is just you can see it clearing out. Right before your eyes, we could see that here this afternoon. That's why I was so certain that they were going to have to upgrade this, and the hurricane hunters would find that when they got there. But they hadn't been there by the time the 5 o'clock advisory came out. And now the other thing that happened this afternoon, which is important, is that it made this little restructuring slow down and jog here, which ended up taking it a little off the previous path. And that is what has been reflected in this slight jog to the south in the cone.
You were talking about this, though. Hurricanes, especially strong ones like this, they don't move in a straight line. That line is an average of the motion that it took to get there, which could sometimes be something like this. Was this a significant enough shift farther off to the right? It's hard to say at this point.
Well, it is hard to say because it could shift back. There are random factors involved here. We look down here, look, you can see down to the Gulf. You can see what they call mesovortices. Those are the things that actually do the real damage around the eye wall. But the eye wall structure is almost certainly not going to be there when this thing gets to the coast. And exactly what the wind speeds are going to be in here, it could go up to 180, could go up and down as it restructures. It's what happens up here when it really kind of unravels. And the idea of unraveling is getting bigger and bigger and distributing that energy over a wider area. And that's why the Hurricane Center has adjusted the storm surge value. And you can see the cone. I mean, it still certainly involves the Tampa Bay area. I mean, the center of the cone is there, and that doesn't really change what people need to do,
right?
Because this little slight jog one way can be compensated for. Here, look, we actually did this. You didn't see this at the top of the hour at 5. This is the previous code. There's where it was at 2 p.m. Now, watch as it moved through the afternoon, and you see that kind of shifted everything over. If this sticks, no guarantee it's going to stick. No way to know, right? If this sticks, this will be the maneuver that pulled the cone away from Tampa Bay. But
folks in Southwest Florida are watching that and saying that's uncomfortable.
That's really bad.
I don't love the look of that.
Not to mention Venice and Englewood.
Yes.
All the places in between. Yeah.
It's a very cautionary tale, though, at this point, because as you said, it could just as easily do some of the some of the same things back in the other direction. But you had mentioned, and it's kind of the geeky nature of this, we are all weather people, and we look at all the forecast models. Some of these brand new high-resolution hurricane models, like the HAFS-B, had this intensification. The global models haven't because they can't resolve. They're not high enough resolution to even see what's going on under the hood of this.
Yes, the functioning part of the hurricane is so small, and the global models work on a grid. So if what's happening is inside the grid, the smaller the hurricane, the less the global models of the European model, the GFS model, the Canadian model. Then we have these special models, new models, right, which have just performed amazingly in Beryl. They performed exceptionally well in terms of knowing, understanding what the structure was going to be when it hit Houston, for example. And so this is a version of what those models show is the system unraveling here. This is Wednesday morning, beginning to unravel and having this jet stream energy supercharging the north part and getting this comma shape down to the south, and that's what these special hurricane models are showing. And here you can see the slight change a little bit south of Tampa Bay on his forecast. But you got to think of this in terms of being a wobble at this point, and a restructuring that ends up moving that way or that way. That's what we have the cone for.
Right, and you're looking at that. If this plays out, again, that's a big if, any wobble, the reasonable error of the NHC, I believe at this range is something like 50 nautical miles. With this structure, though, you're actually seeing a scenario where the worst surge is south, yes, but some of the biggest wind gusts and the heaviest rain amounts could actually be I-4 and points north.
Yeah, and you will get surge a little north here because of this shelf out here. When you get the wind coming around like this, you actually build up surge on this shelf. So exactly how that plays into Tampa Bay and pushing the water one side or the other in the bay and not letting water out of the bay and so forth, that it's very, very, very complicated. So I don't want to say if it goes there, there's going to be nothing in Tampa Bay.
Right.
If it goes way down here, yes, nothing in Tampa Bay. But if it goes close, then we still have a big body of water moving around.
And these are the kinds of things. It is the minutia that's going to dictate who sees the worst of this as we move into the overnight hours tomorrow night or early Thursday. Brian Norcross, our hurricane specialist, we'll be doing more of that as we move forward through the next 24 hours and beyond as Milton gets closer to the West Coast. Look at this now. The window for evacuation is quickly closing. Evacuations are underway in numerous counties across Florida. Yes, we've talked about what's going on the Gulf side, the West Coast, but it's also on the other side. That's including Volusia County, with hundreds already traveling on the roads ahead of Hurricane Milton's arrival. Let's go to the Atlantic side to Fox weather meteorologist Haley Meyer. She's live on Daytona Beach shores. That's a city in Volusia County where we have some of these evacuations. And Haley, it brings people back to storms like Irma, which, yes, it made a landfall on the other side, but we saw this big, dangerous surge.
When you have such a massive storm, a hurricane that's a Cat 3, 4, and in this case a Cat 5, the scope of the impacts is not just isolated to the direct spot where it makes landfall. I think behind me paints that picture pretty well. This was a home that got impacted by Ian as well as Nicole. So Ian was back in 2022, made landfall in Fort Myers, and then we had Nicole shortly after as a tropical storm. Now, both of these storms battered the coastline so badly that Nicole dealt that final blow and sent this home crumbling down. I mean, things look like they are somewhat untouched. You can see pieces of what looks like decking. And then the homeowner here, speaking to some locals, apparently wants to move back in. But there's been a bit of a stronghold here with the insurance companies because it was coastal erosion, not flooding, and not wind that did this sort of damage. We are under evacuation orders right now here in Volusia County. Some folks are heeding those warnings and getting out. Other people are staying. They are, though, boarding up, and we've seen boards across homes. There are multiple areas for shelters, not only for pet-friendly shelters, but also people with special needs. If you need any extra healthcare assistance as well. But if you look just off to my other side in the Atlantic Ocean, it looks a little foreboding, and it's all of this water. It's not the Gulf of Mexico, but it is going to be jostled up by Milton, and eventually could be a major risk to a lot of these homes. So yes, Tampa is key here in terms of the catastrophic, unsurvivable storm surge, but we can't mitigate the impacts here that we're also going to be seeing in a spot like Daytona Beach. It's a dangerous situation for almost the entirety of the Florida Peninsula, Ian.
No question, Haley. We'll be watching that coast to coast from the Gulf side over to the Atlantic side. Haley Meyer, thank you. The popular vacation city of St. Pete Beach, Florida, is also preparing for its second hurricane in 2 weeks. The city, which sits on the Gulf Coast, could see life-threatening storm surge and hurricane-force winds. This, while the region is still cleaning up after its brush with Helene less than 2 weeks ago. We'll talk with the mayor of St. Pete Beach when Fox Weather comes right back.
Hey. Hey, I'm here. Hold on. Okay, stop.
Welcome back. This is a live picture from both St. Pete over on the left side of your screen and Orlando on the right side of the screen. Both of these areas are in.
All right, hold on. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, so. Excuse me. Oh, man. Sorry about that. Hey, we got Kuznets here. We got Kuznets. We got Jeffrey Vacation Nation. Guys, thank you for coming by. Thank you for swinging by. I got the Weather Channel. Hold on. We got Santos talking. Give me a second. Hold on.
Included in a hurricane warning. This, as Milton gets closer and closer, we're likely a little bit beyond 24 hours from a landfall, either overnight tomorrow or the early part of Thursday. But what's kind of just blown our minds, if you've been with us, we just had a chat with Fox Weather's hurricane specialist, Brian Norcross. We got this new special update from the NHC. The hurricane hunters are in this storm, and what they found was instead of the estimated 918 millibars, minimum central pressure is down to 905.
Whoa!
There's some evidence coming back from the hurricane hunters that, yeah, you could maybe support an intensity that's up above 165 miles per hour. So this is a super intense top end storm, once again, a category 5. And the issue is strong now, more energy later. Yes, it spreads out. The overall top winds come down, but the storm grows larger. And that's still very problematic. We're talking about a higher end Cat 3 on approach to the immediate coastline, but the storm's wind field has likely doubled in size at that point. So it's impacting more people. It's pushing more water into the coastline, and big storms. We talked about this a lot with Helene. It's part of the reason why we had hurricane warnings all the way up to Macon, Georgia with Helene. Big storms take longer to spin down. So we would see stronger winds across the peninsula. This is showing you that. This is a new forecast graphic that we just made up. It's the wind field expected at each step of the way. And what you notice, the yellow is the tropical storm force winds. Look at the size of this, where it is now. It's a little bit more than 100 miles extending out from the center of circulation. Look at what it looks like on the opposite side of the peninsula. This is a storm we've been saying 2x, but at least for tropical storm force winds, that could be closer to 2.5, maybe 3x. So this is a storm that gets a whole lot larger as it interacts with some of those strong upper level winds farther off to the north. By the time this storm makes landfall in Florida, it'll be nearly 2 weeks since Hurricane Helene, a Category 4 storm, devastated the West Coast. The destruction it caused and the debris left behind still clutter many neighborhoods. And for that reason, Governor Ron DeSantis issued a mandate to expedite cleanup in counties like Pinellas, where residents are working hard to board up their homes and businesses. Earlier, we spoke with Fox Weather storm specialist Mike Seidel there.
Okay.
The side streets, the neighborhoods, piles of debris, everything's been pulled out. We've got mattresses, we've got drywall, piles of drywall. That's a big problem, because if the drywall gets wet, you've got to get rid of it. Get up to where it's been wet, and you have to, what they say, remediate, take that out and replace it. And then you have to put the mud back on and sand it.
All right, here. All right. Let's see here. Before I get on here, I'll be on later on tonight, prime time. I'm gonna have some live coverage for the Cat 5 hurricane, and we also gonna have some coverage for what's going on in the Middle East. I'm getting ready to have some dinner. I want to thank everybody for coming in. Kuznets, Sea Lake Journeys, Ocean. By the way, guys, pray for Sea Lake Journeys. Pray for Destination Fun, Carnival Cruise Critics. They're all in the zone of the hurricane. So I'm going to be doing some live coverage on that one. Make sure they're okay later on tonight. So, guys, don't forget to hit that bell button. Please hit that bell button. If you're watching this live or Minrex, put it underneath the video. Say, hey, Z, I'm here. I appreciate that. You know what? Sometimes you just got to be what you got to be. All right, let me go ahead and do this. Let me get this here. Hold on. Not yet. Let's see here. I thank everybody coming out. Don't forget the phrase you know already. All right, here we go, guys. Don't forget, stay out of trouble. Stay safe. Don't drink and drive. Do not hang around with knuckleheads to do, and always, 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 always drink responsible. And everybody in Florida, be safe. Peace out. Deuces. Now, wins out.